Galactic distress call answered by Earth's war fleet. The emergency beacon pierced through the cold vacuum of space, its desperate signal reaching across star systems. Commander of the Republic pressed her scaled hands against the control panel of her dying ship, watching the hull breach indicators flash red throughout the bridge. "Commander, the Horde ships are closing in," her communications officer reported, his voice trembling. "We have maybe 10 minutes before they break through our remaining shields." Looked at the tactical display showing dozens of enemy vessels surrounding her small fleet. The Devourer Horde had been sweeping across this sector of the galaxy for months, consuming entire civilizations and leaving nothing but empty worlds behind. Her people, had been one of their latest targets. "Send out the emergency beacon on all frequencies," ordered. "Maybe someone out there will hear us." The young officer hesitated. "Commander, the nearest Galactic Council forces are 3 days away. No one else in this sector has military capabilities strong enough to help us." Reptilian features hardened. "Do it anyway. Someone has to know what happened here." As the beacon transmitted their final message into space, thought about her. 3 billion lived on Prime, unaware that their small defense fleet was about to fail. The Horde would reach the planet in less than a week. Across the galaxy, in a small solar system that most civilizations had never bothered to catalog, the beacon's signal reached Earth. Admiral Sarah sat in the command center of the Earth Defense Network, reviewing supply reports when Lieutenant burst through the doors. "Admiral, we're receiving an alien distress signal," he said, breathing heavily. "It's coming from the 442 sector." Sarah raised an eyebrow. In the 50 years since humanity had developed faster-than-light travel, they had encountered exactly 0 alien civilizations. Most scientists had concluded they were alone in the universe. "Are you certain it's alien?" Sarah asked, following to the communications station. "Positive, ma'am. The signal is using mathematical sequences we recognize, but the language is completely unknown. Our computers are working on translation now." The translation came through minutes later, and Sarah's expression grew grim as she read the message. An entire civilization was under attack by something called the Devourer Horde. They were requesting immediate military assistance. "Where exactly is this signal coming from?" Sarah asked. "Approximately 47 light-years away, ma'am. The signal is about 3 hours old due to transmission time." Sarah stared at the star chart. 47 light-years was well within range of Earth's fastest ships. But committing military forces to help complete strangers in an unknown conflict was not a decision she could make alone. "Get me the president," she ordered. 20 minutes later, President Martinez appeared on the main screen from Washington, D.C. Sarah quickly briefed him on the situation. "Admiral, how confident are we that this isn't some kind of trap?" the president asked. "We've analyzed the signal thoroughly, sir. The mathematical proofs embedded in the transmission would be nearly impossible to fake. Someone out there is definitely in trouble." President Martinez was quiet for a long moment. "Admiral, in your military opinion, what would be the right course of action?" Sarah had been thinking about this since the moment she heard the translation. "Sir, we've spent the last 50 years building the most advanced military force in human history, preparing for threats we weren't even sure existed. Now we know there are other civilizations out there, and one of them is facing extinction. If we don't help them, we might be next." The president nodded slowly. "How quickly can we mobilize a response?" "The Fifth Fleet is currently on training exercises near. They could reach the distress signal's location in 18 hours. "Do it," President Martinez said. "But Admiral, I want our people to be careful. We're walking into a situation we don't understand." As the connection ended, Sarah turned to her staff. "Contact Admiral Jackson aboard the UES Defiance. Tell him he's about to make first contact with an alien civilization." Aboard the UES Defiance, Admiral Jackson received his orders with a mixture of excitement and apprehension. The Fifth Fleet consisted of 12 heavy cruisers, 36 destroyers, and over 200 fighter craft. It was designed to defend Earth against theoretical alien invasions, not to rescue actual aliens from unknown enemies. "Navigation, plot a course for the 442 sector, maximum speed," Jackson ordered. "Communications, keep monitoring that distress signal." As the Earth ships entered hyperspace, Jackson studied everything they knew about the situation. The distress call mentioned something called the Devourer Horde, but provided no details about their capabilities or numbers. For all he knew, they could be walking into a battle against an enemy that could destroy them easily. Back at the battle site, Commander watched her remaining ships fall one by one to the Horde's relentless assault. The alien vessels were organic in design, looking more like massive insects than traditional spacecraft. They seemed to absorb energy from destroyed ships, growing larger and more powerful with each victory. "Commander, we've lost her tactical officer reported. "The moonbeam is venting atmosphere. We're the last ship remaining." Closed her eyes briefly. Her crew had fought bravely, but they were outmatched. The Horde ships were simply too advanced, too numerous. "Any response to our distress call?" she asked, though she already knew the answer. "Nothing, Commander. We're truly alone." The largest Horde ship, a massive creature that pulsed with dark energy, moved towards vessel. She could see smaller ships detaching from its hull, preparing for a boarding action. "All crew prepare for final battle," announced over the ship's communication system. "We die with honor." But as the Horde ships closed in for the kill, new contacts appeared on the sensor screen. Ships were dropping out of hyperspace at the edge of the system, their signatures unlike anything in the galactic database. "Commander, I'm detecting unknown vessels," the sensor operator called out, his voice filled with sudden hope. 17! No, 48 contacts and counting. Stared at the display in disbelief. The new ships were sleek and metallic, clearly artificial rather than organic like the Horde vessels. As she watched, they formed into attack formations with a precision that spoke of advanced tactical training. "Open a communication channel to the unknown vessels," ordered. A new voice filled her bridge, speaking in accented but understandable galactic standard. "Alien vessel, this is Admiral Jackson of the Earth Defense Force. We received your distress call. Please identify your attackers so we can assist." His hands shook as she responded. "Admiral Jackson, I am Commander of the Republic. We are under attack by the Devourer Horde. They consume entire civilizations. I must warn you, they are extremely dangerous." "Understood, Commander. Please move your vessel to a safe distance. We'll handle this." As the Earth ships moved into battle formation, Jackson studied the enemy vessels through his ship's sensors. They were unlike anything in Earth's tactical databases, but they still followed basic physics. They could be destroyed. "All ships, this is Admiral Jackson," he broadcast to his fleet. "We are engaging hostile alien forces. Our mission is to protect the survivors and eliminate the threat. Fire at will." The first salvo from the Earth fleet lit up space like a miniature sun. Projectiles traveling at significant fractions of light speed slammed into Horde ships, while energy weapons carved through their organic hulls. Several smaller Horde vessels simply disintegrated under the assault. But the Horde adapted quickly. The remaining ships began to glow with the same dark energy as their mother ship, deflecting some of the Earth weapons. "Admiral, our energy weapons are having reduced effect," reported Captain Williams from the destroyer UES Marathon. "They seem to be adapting to our frequencies." Jackson smiled grimly. "Then we'll show them something they can't adapt to. All ships switch to kinetic weapons only. Let's see how they handle good old-fashioned physics." The Earth ships adjusted their attack, focusing on and missile weapons. The Horde ships, having adapted to energy attacks, were caught off guard by the change in tactics. Their organic shields seemed designed to absorb energy, but offered little protection against solid projectiles moving at tremendous speeds. "Direct hit on the large vessel," called out the tactical officer aboard the Defiance. "We've penetrated its outer hull." As the battle continued, Commander watched in amazement from her damaged ship. The Earth vessels fought with a combination of advanced technology and tactical flexibility that she had never seen before. When one approach didn't work, they immediately tried another. "Commander, the Earth ships are requesting permission to come aboard and offer medical assistance," her communications officer reported. "Granted," replied immediately. Her crew was badly injured and several sections of her ship had lost life support. The first humans to board a vessel were members of the UES Defiance's medical team. They moved quickly through the damaged ship, treating injured crew members with equipment that seemed remarkably advanced. Doctor, the fleet's chief medical officer, approached Commander on the bridge. "Commander, we've stabilized your wounded crew members. Our medical bay can provide better treatment if you'd like to transfer them to our ship. Studied the human doctor carefully. Doctor was smaller than most, with smooth skin instead of scales, but her eyes showed intelligence and compassion. You would treat alien casualties? Asked. Of course, Doctor replied, as if the question surprised her. Suffering is suffering, regardless of species. Meanwhile, the space battle was reaching its conclusion. The Earth fleet had destroyed or disabled most of the Horde ships, but the massive mothership remained active. Admiral Jackson studied its readings with growing concern. Admiral, that thing is charging some kind of weapon, reported his tactical officer. Energy readings are off the charts. Jackson made a quick decision. All ships concentrate fire on the large vessel, maximum firepower. But as the Earth weapons struck the Horde mothership, it released a pulse of dark energy that washed over the entire battle area. Several Earth ships reported system failures as their electronics were disrupted. Admiral, the enemy vessel is retreating, called out Captain Martinez from the cruiser UES Vigilant. It's opening some kind of portal. Jackson watched as the Horde mother ship disappeared into what looked like a tier in space itself. The few surviving smaller Horde vessels followed it through before the portal collapsed. All ships report status, Jackson ordered. As damage reports came in, Jackson was relieved to learn that no Earth vessels had been destroyed, though several would need significant repairs. More importantly, they had saved the survivors and sent the Horde retreating. Admiral Jackson, Commander's voice came through the communication system. On behalf of the Republic, I cannot express our gratitude enough. You saved not just our lives, but potentially our entire civilization. Jackson activated the communication link. Commander, we're glad we could help, but I think this is just the beginning. If this Devourer Horde is as dangerous as you say, we need to talk. As medical shuttles moved between the Earth and ships, both species began to realize they had just witnessed something historic. Humanity had announced its presence to the galaxy in the most dramatic way possible, by defeating an enemy that had terrorized this region of space for months. But in the depths of space, the Horde mother ship emerged from its portal in a different star system. The alien intelligence controlling it pulsed with anger and curiosity. It had encountered a new species, one with advanced weapons and aggressive tactics. The humans would need to be studied, and then they would need to be devoured. Back at the battle site, Admiral Jackson was already thinking ahead. His fleet had won this engagement, but he suspected it was only the first of many battles to come. Humanity had made powerful enemies today, but they had also made their first alien allies. The galaxy would never be the same. The Galactic Council awakens. 3 days after the battle, the Galactic Council's emergency response fleet finally arrived at the coordinates where Commander's distress call had originated. Fleet Admiral Vex of the Confederation expected to find debris and the aftermath of another Horde victory. Instead, he discovered something that would shake the foundations of galactic civilization. Admiral, we're detecting multiple unknown vessel signatures, reported his sensor operator, a tall blue-skinned. The ships don't match any design in our database. Admiral Vex studied the tactical display with growing confusion. 48 alien vessels hung in space near a badly damaged ship. The unknown craft were sleek, metallic, and arranged in a defensive formation that spoke of military discipline. Are they Horde vessels? Vex asked, though he already suspected they weren't. The organic design of Horde ships was unmistakable. Negative, sir. These ships appear to be artificial constructs, very advanced artificial constructs. Before Vex could respond, his communications officer interrupted. Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the damaged vessel, its commander. Its image appeared on the main screen, but she wasn't alone. Standing beside her was a creature unlike anything in the galactic database. It walked upright but its skin was smooth and pale, lacking scales. Its hair was dark and short, and its eyes showed an intelligence that seemed both familiar and alien. Admiral Vex began, I would like to introduce you to Admiral Jackson of Earth. His people responded to our distress call and saved us from the Horde. Vex stared at the alien beside. Earth, I've never heard of this world. What system are you from? The human stepped forward and spoke in perfect galactic standard, though with an unusual accent. Admiral Vex, we are from a system your people catalog as Sol 3, approximately 47 light-years from here. We call our world Earth. That's impossible, Vex replied immediately. We've surveyed that system multiple times. It contains no intelligent life. Admiral Jackson smiled, an expression that somehow managed to be both friendly and slightly threatening. Your surveys were incorrect, Admiral. Humanity has been spacefaring for 50 years, though we've kept to ourselves until now. As if to emphasize his point, the human fleet shifted into a more aggressive formation. Vex's tactical officer immediately reported increased energy readings from their weapons systems. Admiral, Jackson continued, his tone remaining polite but firm, perhaps we should meet in person to discuss this situation. I believe we have much to talk about. 2 hours later, Admiral Vex found himself aboard the human flagship, the UES Defiance. The interior of the ship was unlike anything he had ever seen. Where most galactic vessels favored organic curves or crystalline structures, the human ship was all sharp angles and metallic surfaces. Everything seemed designed for maximum efficiency and effectiveness. Admiral Jackson met him in what the humans called a conference room. The space was dominated by a large table surrounded by chairs clearly designed for human physiology, though they had quickly adapted one for Vex's taller frame. Admiral Vex, Jackson said as they sat down, Commander has been telling us about the Devourer Horde. From what we understand, they've been attacking civilizations throughout this region for months. Vex nodded grimly. The Horde appeared approximately 8 months ago at the edge of Council space. They've consumed 17 worlds so far. Our fleets have been unable to stop them effectively. What do you know about their capabilities? Jackson asked, making notes on a device that looked remarkably advanced. They seem to absorb energy from destroyed ships and installations, growing stronger with each victory. Their technology appears to be biomechanical in nature. Most concerning of all, they don't seem interested in territory or resources. They simply consume everything in their path. Jackson leaned back in his chair. Commander mentioned they adapt to energy weapons quickly. Is that accurate? Unfortunately, yes. Our energy-based weapons become less effective the longer we engage them. It's made traditional fleet tactics nearly useless. But not kinetic weapons, Jackson observed. We noticed they had trouble adapting to our missiles. Vex blinked in surprise. Your civilization still uses kinetic weapons. Most species abandoned such primitive technology centuries ago. Jackson's expression became slightly amused. Admiral, in my experience, there's nothing primitive about a tungsten rod traveling at 10% of light speed. Physics doesn't care how advanced you think you are. Before Vex could respond, the conference room door opened and Doctor entered with a data pad. Admiral, I've completed the medical analysis of the crew members. I thought you'd want to see this. Jackson reviewed the report quickly, then looked at Vex. Doctor has discovered something interesting. The crew members show signs of exposure to what she calls bioneural toxins. Is this typical of Horde attacks? Vex felt a chill run down his spine. No, Admiral, this is the first time we've heard of anything like that. What exactly did your doctor find? Doctor stepped forward. Admiral Vex, the crew members had microscopic organisms in their bloodstream that appeared to be mapping their neural pathways. If I had to guess, I'd say the Horde was trying to extract information directly from their brains. Information about what? Vex asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. Planetary locations, military capabilities, population centers, Jackson replied. Everything they would need to plan larger attacks. Vex stood up abruptly, his blue skin pale with fear. Admiral Jackson, if that's true, then the Horde knows the location of every major world in the Republic. They could be planning a massive assault. Which is why we need to work together, Jackson said calmly. Admiral, my fleet represents only a small portion of Earth's military capabilities, but we're going to need to understand the bigger picture if we're going to help. Over the next several hours, Admiral Vex found himself sharing classified information about galactic civilization with beings who had been completely unknown just days before. The humans asked detailed questions about everything from trade routes to military capabilities to planetary defense systems. What impressed Vex most was how quickly the humans absorbed and analyzed the information. They seemed to think in terms of systems and logistics in a way that reminded him of the most advanced military minds in the galaxy. Admiral, Jackson said, after reviewing a star chart of the local region, Based on what you've told us, I believe the Horde's next target will be either the mining colonies or the itself. Vex studied the chart. The colonies are more lightly defended, but Prime has a larger population. Either would be a catastrophic loss. Then we need to make sure neither one falls, Jackson replied. I'm requesting additional Earth forces to reinforce this region, but in the meantime, we need to coordinate our defensive efforts. Admiral, I must ask, Vex said carefully, what does Earth want in return for this assistance? Jackson was quiet for a moment. Admiral, my people have a saying, the only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good people to do nothing. We've seen what the Horde does to civilizations. We won't stand by and watch it happen. That's unusually altruistic for a spacefaring species, Vex observed. Is it? Jackson asked. Admiral, in the long run, stopping the Horde benefits everyone, including Earth. Besides, we've just made first contact with galactic civilization. We'd prefer that civilization to still exist when we get to know it better. Back on Earth, President Martinez was briefing the United Nations Security Council on the rapidly developing situation. The revelation that humanity was not alone in the universe had sent shockwaves through every government on the planet. Mr. President, the Chinese representative asked, what are the implications of committing our forces to this conflict? The implications of not committing our forces could be much worse, Martinez replied. According to Admiral Jackson's reports, this devourer horde represents a threat to all biological life in this region of the galaxy. If we don't help stop them now, Earth could be next. The Russian representative leaned forward. What do we know about these Galactic Council forces? Can we trust them? Admiral Jackson reports that they seem genuinely committed to defending inhabited worlds against the Horde, Martinez said. However, their military tactics appear to be less effective than our own. They've been fighting a defensive war and losing. So we would be the dominant military force in this alliance, the British representative observed. Initially, yes, but that could change as we share technology and tactics with our new allies. The debate continued for hours, but the final decision was unanimous. Earth would commit additional forces to the defense of the galactic region against the Horde threat. Meanwhile, in deep space, the Horde mothership was analyzing the data it had extracted from the captured. The information about human capabilities was particularly interesting. This new species showed aggressive tendencies and advanced kinetic weapons technology. The Horde intelligence began planning. The humans would need to be tested more thoroughly before any major assault. Perhaps a probe attack on one of their colonies would provide useful data. But the Horde had made one critical error in its analysis. The humans they had fought were not protecting colonies or distant outposts. They were protecting strangers for no reason other than it was the right thing to do. This level of altruistic aggression was completely outside the Horde's understanding. Back aboard the UES Defiance, Admiral Jackson was meeting with his senior staff to plan their next moves. Admiral, captain of the destroyer UES Ranger, reported, Earth Command is sending the 2nd and 7th fleets to reinforce our position. They'll arrive in 6 days. Excellent, Jackson replied. What about intelligence on Horde movements? Admiral Vex has provided us with their tracking data, reported Lieutenant Commander Sarah, the fleet intelligence officer. Based on the Horde's previous patterns, we believe they'll strike again within the next week. Where? Jackson asked. Most likely the mining colonies. They're less defended and provide access to rare minerals the Horde seems to find useful. Jackson studied the tactical displays. Then that's where we'll make our stand. Contact Admiral Vex and tell him we recommend concentrating our forces at. As the Human and Galactic Council fleets began coordinating their movements, word of Earth's intervention was spreading throughout inhabited space. For the first time in months, civilian populations in the threatened regions felt hope. On Prime, the planetary government was declaring a day of celebration in honor of their human rescuers. Children who had never seen the stars were drawing pictures of the sleek Earthships that had saved their soldiers. But in the deepest parts of space, ancient sensors were awakening. The Horde's activities had not gone unnoticed by other intelligences. Beings that had slept for were beginning to stir, drawn by the massive expenditure of energy from the recent battles. The galaxy was about to become a much more crowded and dangerous place. As Admiral Jackson prepared his fleet for the next engagement, he received a private communication from Earth Command. The message was simple but chilling. Long-range sensors had detected massive energy signatures moving toward the galactic core from outside known space. Whatever was coming was far larger than anything humanity had ever encountered. The war against the Devourer horde was about to become something much bigger, the battle for. The mining colonies hung in space like glittering jewels against the cosmic dark. 3 massive space stations orbited a mineral-rich asteroid field, their industrial complexes working around the clock to extract rare elements essential to galactic civilization. Nearly 2 million beings from dozens of species called these stations home. Admiral Jackson stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, studying the tactical display that showed the combined Earth Council defense fleet. In the 5 days since the Alliance had formed, human and alien ships had learned to work together with remarkable efficiency. "Admiral," reported Commander Sarah, "long-range sensors are detecting the Horde approach vector. They'll be here in approximately 3 hours. Jackson nodded, activating the fleet communications system. "All ships, this is Admiral Jackson. The enemy is approaching. Remember, our primary objective is to protect the civilian population. Secondary objective is to gather intelligence on Horde capabilities. We defend this position at all costs." Admiral Vex's voice came through from his flagship, the GCS Unity. "Admiral Jackson, our evacuation ships have managed to remove approximately 60% of the civilian population. The remaining 800,000 are taking shelter in the reinforced sections of the mining stations." "Understood," Jackson replied. "We'll make sure they stay safe." But as Jackson studied the incoming Horde fleet, he felt a growing sense of unease. The sensor readings showed more ships than had attacked the enemy was learning, adapting, bringing more force to bear. "Sir," called out Lieutenant Torres from the sensor station, "I'm detecting unusual energy signatures from the approaching Horde fleet. The patterns are different from our previous encounter." Jackson moved to examine the sensor data. "Different how?" "The bioships appear to have additional organic growths, almost like they've been enhanced." Doctor's voice came through the intercom from the medical bay. "Admiral, I've been analyzing the bioneural toxins we found in the crew. I think the Horde may have used that information to improve their own capabilities." "Improved in what way, Doctor?" "They've learned our tactics, our weapon signatures, possibly even our strategic thinking patterns. Admiral, they may be expecting everything we throw at them." Jackson felt a chill run down his spine. The Horde wasn't just adapting to energy weapons. They were adapting to human tactics as well. This battle was going to be very different from their first encounter. "All ships," Jackson broadcast, "be prepared for the enemy to counter our previous tactics. We may need to improvise." As the Horde fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the system, Jackson got his first clear look at what they were facing. The enemy fleet had grown to over 200 vessels, including several massive motherships that dwarfed anything in the human or council databases. "Admiral," Admiral Vex's voice carried a note of desperation, "that's the largest Horde fleet we've ever encountered. They must be committing significant forces to this attack." "Or they really want to test themselves against us," Jackson replied grimly. The first wave of Horde ships moved toward the mining stations with the same precision they had displayed before. But as the Allied fleet moved to intercept, the enemy immediately began adapting to their approach. "Admiral, they're spreading out into a formation we've never seen before," reported Captain Williams from the UES Marathon. "It looks like they're trying to surround us." Jackson studied the tactical display. The Horde was implementing sophisticated fleet tactics, something they had never done in previous engagements. They were definitely learning. "All ships maintain formation and engage at maximum range," Jackson ordered. "Let's see how they handle our new tricks." The Earth fleet had spent the past week developing new weapons and tactics specifically for fighting the Horde. Instead of standard energy weapons, they were now using frequency-shifting lasers that changed their energy signatures every few seconds. Instead of traditional missiles, they had developed kinetic interceptors that could adapt their approach vectors in real time. The first salvo from the Allied fleet struck the Horde formation with devastating effect. Ships that had adapted to fixed-frequency energy weapons found themselves vulnerable to the constantly shifting human weapons. Several Horde vessels simply disintegrated under the assault. But the enemy response was swift and terrifying. The massive motherships began releasing clouds of smaller organisms that swarmed toward the Allied fleet like living missiles. "Admiral, those organic projectiles are showing intelligent behavior," reported the tactical officer. "They're actively avoiding our point defense systems." Jackson watched as thousands of biomissiles weaved through the fleet's defensive fire. When they struck Allied ships, they didn't explode like traditional weapons. Instead, they began eating through the hull material, creating breaches that widened with each passing second. "All ships focus fire on the organism clouds," Jackson ordered. "Use the frequency-shifting weapons to disrupt their guidance systems." The battle became a chaotic dance of death as Allied ships tried to destroy the biomissiles while engaging the main Horde fleet. Several Council vessels took heavy damage as the organisms overwhelmed their shields. But the humans had one more surprise prepared. As the Horde mother ships moved closer to deliver a killing blow, Jackson activated a new weapon system that Earth's military scientists had developed in secret. "All ships prepare to fire gravitational disruptors on my mark," Jackson announced. Admiral Vex's voice came through with confusion. "Admiral, what are gravitational disruptors?" "You're about to find out," Jackson replied. "All ships fire." The new weapons sent focused bursts of gravitational energy toward the Horde mother ships. Instead of trying to damage the enemy vessels directly, the disruptors created localized gravity wells that pulled the organic ships apart at the molecular level. The effect was immediate and spectacular. 3 of the largest Horde vessels simply came apart as their biomechanical structure couldn't withstand the gravitational stress. The smaller ships found their formations disrupted as unpredictable gravity fields threw them off course. "Direct hit," called out Captain Martinez from the UES Vigilant. "The enemy fleet is breaking formation." But the Horde's response was unlike anything they had encountered before. Instead of retreating or regrouping, the remaining ships began to glow with the same dark energy that had disrupted Earth systems in the previous battle. However, this time the energy was far more intense. "Admiral, massive energy spike from the enemy fleet," reported Lieutenant Torres. "Whatever they're charging, it's bigger than anything we've seen." "All ships evasive maneuvers," Jackson ordered. "Get clear of those mother ships." But as the Allied fleet scattered, the Horde revealed their true purpose. The dark energy wasn't a weapon aimed at the ships, it was aimed at the mining stations themselves. "Admiral," Admiral Vex's voice was filled with horror. "They're targeting the civilian shelters directly." Jackson watched in dismay as beams of dark energy lanced toward the mining stations. If those beams hit the reinforced sections where 800,000 civilians were hiding, it would be a massacre. "All ships intercept those energy beams," Jackson ordered desperately. But the Allied fleet was too far away. The beams would hit the stations in seconds, and there was nothing they could do to stop them. That's when something unexpected happened. The energy beams struck an invisible barrier surrounding the mining stations and dissipated harmlessly into space. "Admiral," Lieutenant Torres called out in amazement, "I'm detecting massive energy signatures from the asteroid field itself. Something is protecting the stations." As Jackson watched in astonishment, huge metallic structures began emerging from the larger asteroids. They were clearly artificial, but their design was unlike anything in the galactic database. Ancient and massive, they moved with the precision of machinery that had been waiting eons for this moment. "Admiral Jackson," a new voice came through the communications system, speaking in perfect but archaic galactic standard. "I am keeper of the predecessor civilization. We have been monitoring this conflict." Jackson stared at the tactical display as dozens of the ancient structures revealed themselves throughout the asteroid field. "Keeper, we're grateful for your assistance, but who are you?" "We are what remains of the civilization that once ruled this galaxy, before we transcended physical existence. We left these guardians behind to protect developing species from threats like the Horde." The ancient guardians began moving toward the Horde fleet with speed that their massive size. Their weapons were unlike anything Jackson had ever imagined, beams of pure force that didn't just destroy Horde ships, but seemed to unmake them entirely. "The Horde has violated the fundamental laws of civilized existence," Keeper continued. "They consume rather than create. They destroy rather than build. They must be stopped." The battle became a three-way engagement as the predecessor Guardians systematically dismantled the Horde fleet. But the enemy was not finished. The largest mother ship, apparently the Horde command vessel, began charging a weapon that made its previous energy output look insignificant. "Admiral, that ship is channeling massive amounts of dark energy." Doctor's voice came through from the medical bay where she was monitoring the battle. "If it releases all of that at once, it could destroy everything in the system." Jackson made a split-second decision. "All Earth ships concentrate all firepower on the large mother ship, everything we've got." Admiral Vex protested. "Our weapons can't penetrate that energy field." "Then we'll have to get closer," Jackson replied. He activated ship-wide communications. "All hands prepare for ramming speed. We're going to deliver our gravitational disruptors at point-blank range." The UES Defiance and her escorts accelerated toward the Horde command ship at maximum velocity. The massive enemy vessel turned its weapons toward the approaching humans, but the Earth ship's defenses held long enough to close the distance. "Fire all gravitational disruptors, maximum intensity," Jackson ordered as his ship shook under enemy fire. The concentrated gravitational assault struck the Horde command ship just as it was about to release its superweapon. The dark energy discharge, instead of destroying the mining stations, was pulled into the artificial gravity wells created by human weapons. The result was a feedback loop that tore the massive Horde ship apart from the inside. Dark energy cascaded through its biomechanical structure, causing a chain reaction that spread to the nearby enemy vessels. In less than 10 minutes, the entire Horde fleet was either destroyed or retreating through hastily opened portals. The battle was over. "All ships report status," Jackson called out as the last enemy vessel disappeared. The damage reports were extensive but not catastrophic. Several ships would need major repairs, and there had been casualties, but the Allied fleet remained combat effective. "Admiral Jackson," Keeper's voice returned, "your species shows remarkable potential. The way you combine tactical innovation with self-sacrifice reminds us of ourselves when we were young." "Keeper, can you tell us anything about where the Horde comes from?" Jackson asked. "We need to understand what we're dealing with." "The Horde originates from outside this galaxy. They are refugees from a war that destroyed their original home. But instead of seeking peaceful integration, they chose to consume other civilizations to rebuild their strength." Admiral Vex's voice joined the conversation. "Is there any way to communicate with them, to reach a peaceful solution?" "The Horde long ago abandoned the concept of peaceful coexistence," the Keeper replied. "They see all other life as resources to be consumed. The only peace possible is their complete defeat or exile from this galaxy." As rescue operations began for the mining station survivors, Jackson found himself contemplating the implications of what they had learned. Humanity had just made contact with not one, but 3 different levels of galactic civilization. The contemporary species like the and Galactic Council, the ancient predecessors, and the extragalactic threat of the Horde. "Admiral," Commander approached with a data pad, "we've received a priority message from Earth Command. The President wants a full briefing on the predecessor contact." Jackson nodded. First contact had become much more complicated than anyone had anticipated. But as he looked at the rescued civilians being evacuated from the mining stations, he knew that complexity was a small price to pay for the lives they had saved. The war against the Horde was far from over, but humanity had proven they could hold their own in galactic affairs. More importantly, they had proven they were willing to fight for more than just their own survival. As the combined fleet prepared to return to base, Jackson received one final communication from Keeper. "Admiral, the predecessors have watched your species for some time. We are pleased to see that intelligence and compassion can still coexist in the galaxy. The Guardians will remain active to assist in the defense against the Horde." "Keeper, humanity is honored by your assistance," Jackson replied. "But we have to ask, why now? Why reveal yourselves after remaining hidden for so long?" "Because, Admiral Jackson, the Horde threat is greater than you realize. What you have fought so far are merely scout forces. The true Horde invasion is yet to come." As those words sank in, Jackson realized that despite their victories, the war was just beginning. But looking at the mixed fleet of human and alien ships around him, he felt confident that the galaxy would be ready for whatever came next. The mining stations were safe, the civilian population was secure, and the alliance between Earth and the Galactic Council had been proven in battle. But somewhere in the darkness between galaxies, vast forces were stirring. The real test of humanity's place in the galaxy was still to come.